Welcome to Higher Learning. I am your host, Oz Rashid. This is more than just a podcast. It's a front row seat to how elite leaders build the most iconic of teams. The kind of leaders who spot potential that others overlook, who build cultures people don't want to leave, who set the bar, then raise it. Work and how we work is evolving at a rapid pace like no time in history. Our guests will give you insights on how to stay out in front when it comes to all things talent, leadership, management, artificial intelligence, and developing the skills that actually matter. Whether you're a founder, hiring manager, or just obsessed with building teams the right way, this is your spot. If it's your first time here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, drop a rating, tell a friend who gets it. To our longtime listeners, we appreciate you. Thanks for the continued support. Now, let's get into it. Hello, my friends. We are joined by a very special guest today. We're joined by Calvin Arterberry. He's a serial entrepreneur, Techstars alum, and the CEO of Flowbot Forge, where he's building AI-powered systems that help small businesses automate sales, marketing, and operations. Calvin has started at least 5 businesses over the last 2 decades. He's built and exited Midnight Run, a fractional recruiting company, placing senior engineers with startups and fast-growing companies. Before going full-time founder, he spent 15 years in product design and UX leadership at Verizon, Lowe, Best Buy, Wayfair, and State Street, shipping products that drove tens of millions in revenue. What I respect about Calvin is he's not just building companies, he's building a worldview. He spends a lot of his time thinking about the 4th Industrial Revolution, what AI means for the future of work, and what it's going to take for people to thrive in a world that's changing faster than most of us can keep up with. And as you might have guessed, I've got some thoughts and opinions on this myself. So we're going to make sure we have a nice, hearty discussion in this space. He's got strong opinions, and I'm so excited to get into a few of my own. So if you're a founder or leader trying to figure out where AI fits, or just thinking about what your career looks like 5 years from now, you come to the right place. Calvin, how the hell are you?
Oh, great. I want to say excellent intro. That was
not AI. That was human generated. It hit the target. I'm so excited to hear that. So listen, brother, you and I, one of the first times I do a lot of pre-calls, I get to know people before we get on the podcast. We want to make sure it's a great conversation. I don't think I've ever had it evolved into a rapid fire debate on the future of work in AI that actually extended beyond what the pre-call was supposed to do. So I am super excited to get into that. We will do that in just a minute. But let's talk a little bit about your background first, because I want to talk about the journey, entrepreneurial and otherwise. So you've started 5 businesses over the last 20 years. And I want to understand, how did you get into entrepreneurship in the first place? Did you have a lemonade stand? Were you a paper boy? Or like, how did this itch come about? Tell me about it.
So through economic necessity, I would say, like a lot of it, like having graduated, graduated in 2006 in Arizona, and Arizona
wait, can't barely there. Where in Arizona?
Oh, Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, so like I'm from Arizona. I graduated from the University of Arizona.
No kidding. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Another Arizona boy. All right, go ahead. I didn't mean to.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I was gonna say, I love that state. Miss it every day. It rains or snows where I live. Anyway, yeah. So I graduated in 2006, and like the job. So this was 2 years before 2000, the Great Recession. 2008 economic recession.
Great financial recession, yeah.
Great financial recession, right? So I was originally a video game designer, and I was getting into architectural drafting as well. And 2 years before that, the housing economy and just the economy in general in Arizona at the time was just over leveraged. So there was just no jobs. And luckily I started freelancing, creating websites when I was in earning my undergraduate degree for extra money. And so I just went full into that. So making websites out of necessity. Yeah.
What's amazing is, so many people in AI and in the technology space, it feels like got their start in the video game and design world. Like I know Demis Habbousis, or Hassibis, I guess, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Elon Musk is famously very interested in video game design. And if you think about it, that's really NVIDIA, right? GPUs were built first for graphics processing units for video games. And so it feels like that's like our first foray into AI, isn't it? Playing video games and whether it be Street Fighter punching back at you or The Legend of Zelda and all the different things you'd have to do there. It seems like that's a lot of people's first foray into AI. And I just find it kind of amazing how many careers have taken off in that space. So you had to go by necessity, start your own business. Was it seamless? Like, was it something that like, were there lots of headache? I know the
Yeah,
answer.
it's
Yeah.
never seamless. I mean, but I think the hardest part is learning sales and forming relationships with complete strangers that are precipitated by like economic concerns. Like we did trade, like there's a transaction in here, and then but we still need to form a human relationship. Like marrying that dynamic together. That was probably the hardest
Yeah, it's funny, you know,
to
the
learn.
a
Yeah,
founder is a funny thing, right? Like we all have like this core skill, and then but to be a successful founder, you have to build more core skills around that, whether you're comfortable with that or not. I'm reminded by this because we have this new service that we've been doing for about 6 months called Aon Source, where we work with a lot of founders. We get them like top talent. It's not been vetted at all, right? It's cold candidates, but I know I was working with a founder over the weekend where we sent him candidates and he's like, "Have these people been contacted?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, they're really great fits, but like, I don't know what to say." And I was like, "Okay, well, let me coach you on like casting your vision and getting them excited to
yes,
want to join your mission." Right.
right, yes.
So it's just funny how those things work. So how did you get better at sales? Was it reps? Did you read books? Was it YouTube?
Ooh, yeah. So YouTube was in its infancy back then, so I would definitely not say it YouTube, but definitely reading books and then just getting reps, and just cold calling, like picking up the phone book when the phone book was a thing, and then, hey, do you
Mhm.
have a website? In my shaky voice,
Yep.
no, okay, I can make you one, and then and what I've also learned is how to create leverage in a deal, but more importantly, make it like win-win in the first 5 seconds for your customer versus you, right?
Mm.
So I would structure it like, I'll make a website for you. If you don't like it, you don't have to pay anything for it, but either way, you can have a website, right, willing and waiting. And so once they see it, then a lot of, oh, it's already mine, it has my logo on there. Then that sort of breaks down barriers of trust and credibility.
I love
And
that.
so, yeah, you have to get creative in deal formation and creation. And a
Yeah,
lot of
you gotta
entrepreneurs, yeah,
stand out. You gotta make people
correct.
feel like they're not taking a risk by jumping on with somebody they never heard about until they got that call, and making it as low
Exactly.
commitment as possible until they get the outcome they want, I think is really, really smart. Um,
Correct.
so one of the things that you and I hit it off on is that we have some common ground in the talent and staffing space. So I talked about Midnight Run in the intro. First of all, love the name. Is that after the movie, or why'd you call it Midnight Run?
No, you know what's funny is I didn't even know there was a movie, Midnight Run, but after I read the book, after I registered the URL, built the website, and then I looked at it, kind of fits. I mostly built it on like when I was in my career type, a lot of folks would just moonlight. And so, you're working, your second, consulting gig after your main job, moonlighting. And so that's like sort of midnight
Dude,
run,
I love that.
if you
That's so
will.
smart.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what problem were you solving there? So I know you were doing
Mhm.
senior engineers, fractional basis.
Correct.
Was this like, hey, I want extra income. I've got more time. I don't have a gateway to finding out about these opportunities. Like, what were you solving for there?
Yeah. So this was actually, I was consulted with my friend's startup, at the time, and it was really hard to find engineers like we could find engineers, but engineers that fit. And there was always this economic model of, okay, well, we can only afford like for someone with 5 years experience. Well, what we really need is someone with 10 years of experience. And they were never going to join our ship, if you will. And so I was like, what if we just had 50% of somebody's time that has 10 years of experience versus someone fresh out of school or just inexperienced in general? And so what was I going to say? So we started, it actually worked by, hiring sort of fractional experts to fill role-based roles. And then we ended up, the body of the work was done by junior developers. And so I was like, wait a minute, there's something here. And what was I going to say? So just turning that into a business model. And I think there's, what was I going to say? This willingness to try talent before you hire full time was sort of emerging in the economy at the time.
Okay. So do you like see Upwork commercials nowadays and you're like, what the
Oh my
heck?
goodness.
I was on them this way
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Upwork was in its infancy, I guess, so we're just sort of just taking off. And Upwork definitely solves talent shortages or the need for talent for certain roles, but not necessarily deep technical roles. That's where your top tools would come in. But top
Mm.
tool has a very high floor, 10,000 above 10,000, per month or more in a lot of cases. And we put a significant amount of money down. So we were just sort of in that interstitial sort of marketplace between right above, I was going to say,
Upwork. Upwork and
Upwork.
below top towel. Yeah, you're
Exactly.
finding that middle of that
That
market segment.
mid-market niche, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Okay. So you sold that business off, right? And then
Yes.
now you moved into your current company at Flowbot Forge. But I want to talk to you about AI because
Yes, please.
not only is it, contractually necessary for every podcast to have at least a component of an AI conversation, but this is
Yes.
an area where you and I have both thought a lot, and we have some similarities in our ideas, but we have some differences. So let's start here. Okay. You started seeing a lot of kind of proliferation of AI in 2022. I think ChatGPT and kind of that moment happened, I think, in 2023, if I remember correctly, or maybe around that same time.
Yep.
Yeah, and that became kind of like when the user interface just became so usable that even grandma could pick it up and use it, right? And then we've been just going through this like dead sprint, right, since then.
Correct.
And you've called this the fourth industrial revolution. And there's a
Correct.
lot of people putting a lot of time and thought into this idea of the future of work. So I'd like for you to lay out your thesis to start. What do you see happening? What do you know for sure? And what are we still don't have enough information to understand?
Okay. All right. So I think one of the biggest headlines is will AI replace me? And I think what started 2 weeks ago was you started off with Jack Dorsey's startup. I think it was Square or whatever the derivative name is now. Roughly laying off 30% of the workforce. And then you see other technical companies, upper mid-market enterprises following suit. Thousands of hires at a clip. I'm going to be very radically transparent here. There was a significant amount of overhiring done in these tech companies. And I want to be nuanced about this. Like only a fraction of the roles in a tech company are actually tech. I would say at least 70% of those roles support the technical team, right? And it's sort of, but one can consider them below revenue generating lines. So they weren't necessarily, they're working on they were roles that contributed to overall profitability of supporting that 30% that actually drives revenue. But they are in and of itself technical roles like customer support, back-end operations, design to a lesser degree, any role that didn't necessarily touch the code or make the product. And so those roles generally go away anyways whenever there's a credit, whenever there's a credit crunch, right? But what we're now seeing is a lot of businesses can get away with it and just say, job loss due to AI. And to be radically transparent, the level of AI, from my understanding, is we can create the world's smartest interns right now. We're working on memory so it can remember facts over time. It's sort of like a frontier space, but it cannot yet think creatively. It will not replace creative thought. And that's a whole nother conversation outside of the scope. So the net of it is a lot of employers are saying, AI, we're losing these jobs, we're shedding roles because of AI to a degree, but I think a lot of it is one, they overhired them during the pandemic. Two, they're also accounting for economic instability for the foreseeable future because we just have not had much stability over the past 3 years, honestly, in this business climate.
Yep. Okay. So fair. I like that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think, what I see. I've been thinking a lot about this myself. Obviously, I'm in the space where I have kind of this unique point of view in that I'm building AI software, right? But also I work in the job market. And so I see whether it be displacement or people laid off or, how much people are using AI in their work. I'm in multiple CEO communities where we talk about how it's being shared and how we're using it. So I'm gonna say some things. I have some opinions I feel pretty strongly about, with the caveat though that more data, more information may come out that may change my mind. But here's what I see: short, midterm, and long term. Okay, so short term, you brought up Jack Dorsey and the company you were talking about, Square, but it's Block with which is Square and Cash App together. Like you said, there was about 30 to 40% of the workforce. And one of the biggest differences here was that he actually came out and said, we're getting advantages through AI, right? Whereas other companies had been doing a lot of layoffs up to that point, right? And we're saying, redundancy or financial issues or whatever it may be. They didn't actually prescribe AI. And what's interesting about it is Block, the stock price went up temporarily, right? Like took off because it's like, oh my God, this is somebody in the AI future who really gets it. And then like things started to trickle out right afterwards that like, wow, they had done a lot of the overhiring that you were talking about, right? And you read some of the accounts of like what people are saying. So here's my take. I think there's two different types of founders right now, two different types of leaders in businesses. Okay. One looks at AI and says, okay, wow, we can replace a lot of our task and administrative work here. And maybe we've hired a lot of people here who just do task-based administrative work where they didn't really have to think. They were just doing tasks anyway. And we can replace that. And lo and behold, I can take headcount off of the general ledger and replace it with an AI subscription fee. And by the way, this AI never asked for PTO or has any problems or, ever wants to, push back in a meeting. Okay. Bingo, bango. Here we go. Shareholder value. Boom. Let's do the layoffs.
Correct.
Way of looking at it. Okay. And then there's the other way of looking at it, which is an abundance mindset. Okay. Yes, there's going to be some task displacement here, but we have a lot of really talented people in this organization. By putting AI in their hands and training them and teaching them how to use it, we can actually 3 or 5x in the short term their productivity, right? And who knows what it can look like longer term. Okay. So they're looking at it as like, I can take this technology and actually empower my people to do better work. So the cynic in me says 80% of the people are not creative enough, and they're going to be the first group, right? Where they're going to say, oh, hey, I'm going to get shareholder value and I'm going to do a layoff. And then I'm going to say it's because we're getting synergies out of AI. And guess what? I'm now a genius leader because I found out how to reduce our OpEx. Here's what I see the problem with that. Okay. I think Jack did a very important, but not very good thing, especially if people start to follow what he does. Because if we have a bunch of layoffs happen, and rightfully or wrongfully is getting blamed on AI, what's going to happen? Those people who are impacted are going to be very upset, and they're going to blame it on AI themselves. And they are going to, especially if they have to take, like we read this in Trini article, especially if they have to take lesser jobs and lower jobs, right, in this market to do that, you're going to have a lot of people going to their congressmen and their senators and saying, this can't happen. And we can't have this. And the government will look at this, and their incentive structure is to get reelected. Okay. And if 70% of your base, right, gets laid off, good luck getting them to vote for you when it comes time for your seat coming up, right? Whether that be midterms, whether that be presidential elections, whether that be Congress elections, whatever it may be. And by the way, there's also the idea of like 70% of our economy, consumer economy, is on these white collar jobs, right? And them spending money. And so we can't have this happen. So my belief is, so the short-term thing is, yes, we'll see more of it. And I totally think you're right on that. The midterm is government will act way too late and probably be heavy-handed when they do it, but they're going to react because there's zero chance. They're just going to allow whatever the technology allows us to do, right, to happen. And then it wipes out all these jobs, kills our private markets, kills our economy. And then these people don't get reelected. And we're just not going to let that happen. So my hope is that they don't have a regressive AI policy that says, we should stop the building of data centers like Bernie Sanders says, or we should stop the technology. Bad idea. But if there are companies profiting from this and they're just getting more shareholder value and more profits because of these layoffs they do, well, there should be a tax associated with that. Okay. So that's what I see in the midterm. And I also think the lack of energy, the lack of memory that exists, there's actually a world right now, and I think we're seeing in a lot of different places where people are spending more on tokens than they are on actual full-time employees. So the actual economic setup is not there just yet either. And I think it's only going to get worse because the energy and memory situation is going to get worse before it gets better. Okay. So that's the short and midterm view in my perspective, which means this wave of everything that's going to happen will slow down and it will allow us as humans to catch up, I think, and rebuild whatever it looks like, right, as we go forward in the new world economy order. Now I'm going to say one last thing on the long term, and then I want you to push back on me. Okay. So in the long term, what I think is happening is there's going to be short-term disruption. And you're going to have a bunch of foolhardy leaders that are like, let's cut all these jobs and these entry-level jobs and and that's already happening. And that's only going to get worse. And then go away from entry level because the AI will get better until you can replace program managers, product managers, financial analysts, like managers in general, like maybe even CEOs, who knows, right? The technology we all agree is going to move in that direction. But here's what I see happening. While there'll be short-term disruption, I believe that job design will change. Okay. So what I mean by that is, okay, Uber driver, maybe we have autonomous cars and you don't actually need anybody to drive. But if maybe there's somebody who's sitting in the front seat of that car, okay, who is now helping you put your groceries into the car, helping with your bags at the airport, or doing work for you on the way there, right? Now, the need to drive is not there as much as have somebody kind of do all the things around that, right? And that's one example of many, right? What does a product manager do, right? Versus what a project manager does, versus what a financial analyst does. The job design will change. And so I think there will be some jobs that change and are fundamentally wiped out. But let's be real. These are not the jobs people get out of bed excited about. These are not the jobs that give us purpose. These are the jobs that are like, I got a case of the Mondays or I got the Sunday scaries and I don't want to go to work. So everybody, I think, thinks the entire job market's going to change. Here's my contrarian belief. it's not going to change as much as you think it's going to. Okay.
Mm.
The job design will change. There will be some job loss, but it won't be the jobs that we wanted or missed anyway. It'll be the jobs we all hated. And actually, there will be jobs created that we don't even know or see right now.
Mhm.
And net, what's going to happen is, in my mind, is that in the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be as many people working as want to work. The type of work they'll be doing will be there. And I actually think that prices will depress so much because once they finally get memory and energy and everything figured out, the means for production will be so low that we can have access to more things. And maybe we're
Correct.
not working for this idea of a paycheck to buy bigger and better things, but we're working because it gives us purpose and we provide impact and it's something that we love and enjoy.
Mhm.
Okay. That's my utopia. That's what I believe is going to happen.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. I think we all, our version of the future largely intersects. I think how we get there is fundamentally like how we differ in terms of viewpoint, right? I firmly believe, and this is what I've learned as a designer in general, we will never ever go back to a Ford Model T versus the car we drive now, even the baseline Camry, right? Or the Hyundai Sonata is light years ahead. And so as a species, our number one defining characteristic, besides being able to run long distances and shed heat efficiently, is our ability to create tools. And so right now we are in a space in our civilization, collective civilizations, if you will, to create tools that augment right now, to a larger extent, our ability to know, to think, to think or to reason to an extent. And I fundamentally see this as an amazing boon to the small business economy, which is largely what the United States economy is based upon. I believe that, 90% of all businesses fail within the first 3 years. Well, what if we created software that was personalized to a business, to a founder, that helps them, like if we could stop that failure by even by a third, what is the economic gains? And small business is the number one employer of human beings, right? Because, and so what we're going to see in the future is less role-based jobs, which largely are an artifact or distant cousin of the Industrial Revolution, where you just needed a body and a seat to perform the same task, inputs and outputs, and more moving to a level of work where it's now orchestrating work between human beings and AI agents. And so I gave a talk maybe about several months ago at the end of 2025 rather, at DC Tech Meetup, one of the larger meetups in the DMV. And it was really about where individual contributors are now managers in a way. And you need to fundamentally think about work as the conductor rather than trying to be the first violin. Because let's face it, a lot of knowledge work has become routine. And then one can argue like routine work, routine anything is the death knell of a creative species. You get bored, right? And so let's lean into our species' strengths collectively about creative thought. What was I going to say? The ability to imagine, right? What can we do with 5x now production capacity where we couldn't before? And to your point, there's going to be two types of managers. One that sort of cut, let's cut all expenses and run a very tight, lean ship. Fantastic, great, right? But that's only going to give you a short-term economic advantage. Whereas the same business, let's just invest hiring more creative and talented individuals, give them agents to augment their creative capacity, right? Very similar hiring plans, similar CapEx costs. One will reap the lion's share of the market because now, at least from a software standpoint, there's no difference between ChatGPT and Anthropic besides philosophical differences. It's very easy for one business to copy the other's features in less than 2 weeks, which is magic. That's amazing, right? And so it really just depends on what business can imagine a better future and a better experience for the customers that will ultimately retain their one, market share, and two, their competitive advantage. And then I'll lead off with this is like the new sales team, like the ability to capture attention is now more important than the means of production. And so marketing and sales have never been more important in determining a venture's or business's success. And ultimately, these core disciplines, revolve around understanding human needs. And we don't have a full economy where we're buying from agents already, like My virtual agent isn't buying from your virtual agent, Oz. Not yet, at least. But we're still transacting human to human, building trust, right? And, you're reading the micro expressions of my face, and I'm reading, your tone and tonality. We don't have AI that can reason well enough to understand that and then mirror back tone, cultural understandings. And you probably won't have one for quite some time. And if we did have one, there's this principle in movies called the uncanny valley, where you attempt to create something that resembles a human, but it is off by just 1 millimeter. And that in and of itself creates an emotion of reversion and disgust.
Mm.
So all that to say, like, even if we create really, really smart robots, they will still distinguish themselves as robots. Because if there's 1 imperceptible mistake, that trust is broken, right? And then you won't transact, or you won't form an effective relationship. So I think, robots, they'll look much more like R2D2 than, synthetic androids in the future, because it just.
Finding the right talent for your team doesn't have to be a struggle. Meet Aon Hire, the world's first hiring experience management platform designed to transform the way you hire. Powered by AI, Aon Hire takes the hassle out of every step in the process. From smart resume analysis to customized interview questions, it saves you time, money, and effort. Plus, with real-time insights from every interview, you can quickly identify top candidates, reduce turnover, and stay on budget. And forget about note-taking, Aon Hire takes care of that for you. Ready to revolutionize your hiring process? Visit aonhire.com and get started today.
I'm with you on that. Here's the thing. I'm skeptical, and I welcome the opportunity to be wrong on this. I'm skeptical that humans are going to want to buy important things solely from AI and machines. Do I think that AI and machines will answer a lot of questions leading up to it, but eventually you want a human there that you interact with and buy from at the end when something that's important and critical? I think so. Not like a real estate agent, because I don't know that I feel there's a ton of value there, but I think there's opportunities for us to want to have that trust in that we're working with a human being, that we can have a rapport, right? Well, even if everything else being, I'm skeptical that we're going to like have musicians that are like totally AI, and we know they're AI, and we love them like we love Nirvana or the Rolling Stones or Tupac. Maybe, I'm not saying that AI can't be used to make music, but am I going to follow a hologram that's like an AI conception and love their music and love that? I don't know. One thing I'm positive on, am I going to want to watch a golf tournament where it's 50 robots that all can hit a hole-in-one on the par 5 every time? No, of course I'm not going to.
Right. The imperfection, our human flaws
Of
become our
course.
greatest advantage.
Of
Right. So we have
course.
to lean into our species. You have to lean into our both our strengths and our faults. And now we have that freedom, potentially. Less so in the physical world, but much more in the knowledge work world. And so one thing that's really interesting and exciting to me is this notion of the very people that are fueling this revolution, the coders or the developers, people that write code themselves. There's a layer of abstraction where your identity or your purpose in life is not to create code, but to much more create agents that code and create creative works based upon your ability to control them or frame a problem that they then solve individually. You're the orchestra rather than the coder. And so I think it's much more of a what value do I provide in the world versus what is my occupation? Because your occupation can and will go away or be redefined, and it should rightly. And one would say you're better off disrupting yourself rather than your employer disrupting you, because they will always benefit to what's in best interest of the firm.
Of course. And
Anyway,
like I said, financial value and making profits and things like that, which is why I think if we leave it to the designs of just them, right? And I think Dario Amodei came out a few weeks ago and said, you should tax us 3% on everything we do, knowing that he's trying to get out in front of this idea of like, we're going to make so much money and really like throw things on its head. And we don't want you to stop us from doing that. So please come take some of the money so that we can redistribute. He actually said that. And then there's actual like articles on this, which I think ultimately, whether he's trying to be out in front of it or that's what he genuinely wants and believes, I think is what there'll be some level of that. But here's what I want to ask you. Okay.
Please.
So a couple of thoughts in my head where I'll challenge what you said. So you made the comment about like this creator economy, this independent economy, these like $1 billion one person. Okay. I think we both agree that like meritocracy is still going to exist in 15 to 20 years. Okay. Is it? Like, is any yokel going to be able to pick up have an idea and put it into an AI prompt and build a company? Like, I don't know. So I guess my question to you is, what will differentiate the great company, the great business, the good business, the one that goes out of business? What will differentiate? Because are you saying that there will be no differentiation and they will all be equal businesses? I don't know. Like, what will differentiate us? Because we know what it is now. Resources are moving, and resources are going to change. I get that. It's going to democratize, right? But so does intelligence, agency, relationship building, trust building. Like, are those things all going to go away and anybody now can do anything and we're all at the same level? I don't know. That seems more illogical to me than anything.
I mean, so, right, as a hierarchical species, we've always had sort of a leadership layer, a middle class layer, and then the folks that perform like labor. Like, if you think about it from a classist-based perspective, right? What I do see now is we'll still have leaders, but will there be like below them would be individuals that perform labor and it being weighted equally. Doesn't necessarily mean equal treatment, right? Not to get too political, but just let's say on the economic argument, value is in the eye of the beholder. Like let's take a look at like streamers, for example, and this idea of an influencer. This term did not exist and wasn't $1 billion sort of market category 20 years ago, right? But this industry largely existed by one individual to be able to, or a group of individuals to create and magnify attention and or reflect the shared value system across your audience. As again, going back to human beings, what we're really great at is we think very tribalistically. We will always find a unique niche to identify ourselves, either by what we do or what we don't do. But technology is a really great uniform. I was going to say, technology is a really great lever of social justice because or social egalitarianism, let's say, or social equality, because I can now use the same models that the world's frontier companies are using. I have that same access. Now, to your point, education systems are now more important. The ability to learn how to use these tools correctly. In order, let's just say, make an AI agent to market my plumbing business, for example, rather than staying small and regional. I can now make agents. I can hire folks fractionally to teach me how to make these agents, and then I can now have a human/AI agent sales team to go out and market on my behalf, because all I want to do is, at the end of the day, I just want to be the world's best plumber, right? And then the other layer is like just human beings and our ability to trust one another has always been that barrier, right? Like, would you trust your agent to buy a house, like an AI agent to buy a house for you, sight unseen? No. But could it negotiate for you or help in the negotiation process? Probably.
Yeah. Right? You can help you understand it. A couple of things here. Okay. Now, I know that you look at this as giving people an optimistic view of AI. Okay. And I think to a sense, it gives like the average Joe this ability to say, I haven't had a lot of opportunity or resources in the past. But I will now because of, like you said, I have access to these things, right? But I also looked at, I'm giving it an optimistic point of view with a very different lens, with the idea that uniqueness will always matter. Specialness will always matter. The bar of what it is and what it entails will just raise and look different. I'll give you an example of what I mean, okay? So we got all these people vibe coding and building their own apps, okay? I've yet to see something be vibe coded that's become Salesforce, okay? But hold on, maybe that happens in time, okay? But you are kidding me if you're telling me that non-developer who doesn't understand programming languages, doesn't understand frameworks, didn't go through many, many years of development, isn't more well-positioned to build something impactful faster than Oz off the street with no development experience, right? And I'll use this example, right? I started my career in recruiting early on like you did. And you know what I had to do? I didn't have LinkedIn. I didn't have as many job boards. I had to call into companies and I had to Matt Palmer calling from the Chamber of Commerce, right? I had to be very how I navigated and engaged with candidates, how I found their phone numbers. All of this, I believe, has made me better to grow a company and a team based on having to do it the old fashioned way or get down to the level of the process and really understand it. Now I can take advantage of all these tools and all the different things that are out there that have made it so easier. But the fact that I went through the difficulty has made me even supercharged, opposed to the person that just started doing this 5 years ago and has always had these tools at their behest. Now, that's not the apples to apples comparison. I'm just saying that, like,
no, you're right. You're right.
Inner working knowledge of something still gives you an advantage, even if the tools can do things a lot different and there's more democratization of capability.
Correct. Right. You're absolutely right. You will still have a unique advantage based upon your prior context or experience, domain expertise, or just time on planet, right? If that's a, metric of success, time on planet, lived experience, which it is, which really makes me, I will say this, like, I am concerned for Gen Z, actually, because time in seat or time on task of, like, learning the fundamental skills to become a world-class engineer, these opportunities are not there in the marketplace.
I think people are going to outsource their brains more and more, and they're going to lose that advantage and atrophy to a degree where maybe the gap grows and widens, which I don't want. But I'm saying that, like, there will be a new meritocracies. Look, another example I'll use quickly is, I've used this analogy a bunch, the internet. Okay. If I told you in 1995 that we would have access to all of the world's real information for free for pretty much everybody in the world, which is pretty close to where we're at in terms of the internet and its proliferation. Okay. Now, fast forward 30 years. Calvin, what would you think? Oh my God, the education system's completely different. We don't have universities. Everybody's getting so smart. Everybody's a walking genius. Is that our lived experience? Is that what it is in 2026? Because we've actually gotten dumber in a lot of ways collectively as a society.
Correct. Well, to an extent, right? Like the level of understanding of, like, of arithmetic, reading comprehension skills going down. But let's just be very, very clear. That is not it, or sort of like iPad parenting where you stick an iPad in front of your children in order to placate them. A lot of that has to do with undervalue or underinvesting in the school system on a state level and federal government level within the United States. Like, that's I can only speak for. There are other governments and systems that invest wholeheartedly into their education systems, but there's not the same level of intense competition in the United States as in, let's just say, South Korea or China, for example, right, where there's 300 students for every one seat of college for college. There's just not enough competition. What in defense of lowering, like, do I really need to remember how the quadratic equation works if I'm going to be a civil engineer by the back of my hand, if I'm leveraging an AI agent that helps me create more functional, stable designs for, let's just say, bridge building, right? Or the trigonometry or any sort of advanced math and calculations? Am I saying, like, do I need to remember these off the top of my head? No, but do I need to understand how they essentially work and solve problems mathematically so that way, like, my bridge doesn't fall underneath its own weight? Yes. In the same way that when folks first started driving cars around, you had to be a mechanic, an aficionado, learn how to change the oil because the car may break down on mile 10 of a 20-mile journey, right? But now you ask it, can you fix your own car?
Yeah, but if we all have access to the same information and tools, and now you still need to make a selection of which route you're going to go, wouldn't you select the person who does know the quadratic equation if everything else is equal, right?
If everything else, well, that's assuming that we live in an equal society. Well, there will always be micro differences. Like, as a species, we're really
and that's what I'm saying. We're both saying the same thing.
Yes.
There's this,
We're the same way. Yes.
The level changes. Like, agency still matters. The desire
does
to
matter.
Get that knowledge. Right? So here's what I'm going to say, and we'll close up because we got to talk some talent here. This is my recommendation to everybody out there. Okay, just because the technology can doesn't mean it should. Your advantage in the future, right, is the knowledge and the understanding of the inner workings and not outsourcing that to AI just because AI can. If anything, I think that's going to cause a lot of people to not have rudimentary things that they actually might need or might differentiate them from column A or column B because they didn't go through those things. And they're like, I've always been able to just do it this way. And that's why that's the way it works, right? I will say the other thing is, here's where I think China's biggest advantage is, right, compared to this global race for AI. Here's the biggest advantage. If you look at sentiment analysis in China about how the common person feels about AI, 80 to 85% positive.
Correct.
Versus the US where it's 80 to 85% negative. Again, abundance mindset versus the fear mindset is the biggest problem we have for adoption, for policy, and for coming out of this, whatever this AI world is, into something where we're living in some sort of utopia, or we're figuring out how to make it work with our society in the most positive way. I'm promising you, going it from a fear angle is the worst thing we can do, rather than going into it from a, hey, we know there's going to break some eggs to make some omelets, but this is worth doing because the opportunity is there. And I think you and I look at it that way, but I don't think a lot of other people do. And I don't think we're being done any favors by a lot of the big extreme comments that we hear out there from CEOs of these companies and others.
Right. The hyper-politicization of innovation, it's being used as an economic tool to sway masses. Yeah, no, please don't, right? Innovation in and of itself is neither positive or negative. It's the application of the technology. And one can see the differences between China and the United States is one is service-based economy, one's industrial-based economy. Every service worker saw the right, realized, oh, wow, I can no longer have a job. And it comes from a fear-based level of decision-making.
Robotics is going to take over manufacturing too. That's coming much faster than anybody realizes, right? It's
coming much faster. It is slightly delayed by a number of years, right? But it is coming. Anyway, but I do think it is going to create a lot more opportunity. And just like when word processing became a job requirement and understanding, Microsoft Office and leveraging the personal computer to gain a job, this is just another level. And it's not that scary. It's not that scary.
Not scary. Embrace change. That's Calvin and I's recommendation. All right, brother, let's talk a little bit of talent, okay? Now, you're somebody that started 5 businesses. You work with some of the biggest companies in the world. We saw that earlier. When you're bringing somebody to join your team, do you have a core hiring philosophy you adhere to?
Ooh, I like people that can think of their feet. Think on your feet and understand an abstract problem space. And I like to see
in the interview then? Like, do you get people to think on their feet in the interview? So give us an example. What might you do?
That's a really great one. Yeah, so I'll give like case studies. But I did case studies just to see how someone thinks. So, for example, we were hiring an intern about a year ago for just learn AI tools in general. So I gave them a specific task, like, hey, I want you to build this system together. And this person knew nothing about AI, right? But I was really testing on how quickly could they learn, how quickly could they put a prototype together. And I just structured it like that, just in the interview process and then learning how they would go find those answers. Like for me, it's all about hunger and aptitude. You cannot train that. That is an innate skill that I believe is now more important than ever, because in my company or my roles, it's not cut and dry. We don't try to industrialize anything. We always like AI does that for us. We're always on the next.
Love that. Totally agree. What about, do you have a memorable interview experience? If I ask you that, does any come to mind?
Oh, a memorable interview experience.
It could be for you interviewing. You could be interviewing.
Yeah. So, I would say like 2016, being a designer, generally they're getting like these whiteboard challenges, like make an app off the top of your head, and it has to have these specific requirements. And then you go through like 3 or 4 rounds of these interviews. And what is really most important is not necessarily the design, but the ability to sell the solution, which is really what most folks don't tell you when you're a UX designer or just a creator in general. Is like creativity has been commoditized to a large degree. It's the ability to get people to believe in you and to believe in a future that doesn't exist, right? And essentially millions of dollars on the line. So how do you do that? And so like going through those design interviews, I think for the company was Wayfair. It was really challenging, but really exciting at the same time. Yes.
If I ask you to think to the best hire you ever made, does somebody in particular come into mind? And you don't got to name names. We can have a lot of think that's them. But I'd like to know when you knew and how you knew it.
Oh, that's a great question. I would say hiring your co-founder, because company formation is probably one of the most important hires you'll ever make. But hiring your co-founder has probably been the most, for this current venture that I'm on, has been the most important decision that I've ever made. Yeah.
The only analogy I'll give you that might be more important or as important is marrying a spouse. And I hope I'm the best hire my wife's ever made. Well, I don't know.
True. Well, here's the thing too. Like when his spouse and hiring business partners, you need to continuously be dating in your relationship. But also,
the thing is, it's exactly the same thing. All the problems you have in a marriage are the same ones you have in a co-founder relationship.
Today's value is just as important as past value, if not more important.
100%.
So I've got to be contributing.
100%. What is the role of technology in hiring for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't hire normally. Like I generally like small teams. So I don't like resume scanners, so I read every single resume. But I believe that technology is really more important when it comes to like choosing the right platform to host like a video conference on. And making sure it's stable. And then personal aptitude tests are pretty important actually. So like going through like Myers-Briggs personality assessments, even though they're not statistic like math, like from a scientific standpoint, they're BS, but they do give a good inkling of how people think, and then it helps me relate to them. They do provide value there. So like psychographic analysis tools, I would say we use.
We're going to talk AI. You were talking about video management platforms. We'll talk about that at a later date. All right. What is the most unique use case for AI you have? Just something totally like bonkers that nobody else is using AI for. It could be personal, it could be professional, it could be anything.
Ooh, so, okay. So I think I talked about like the value put of most small businesses. Here's the problem with their entrepreneurs now. They generally think differently than the body politic or just people in general. And they tend to be like a maverick of some sorts. Hyper specialized, not so T-shaped, but what really prevents businesses from being successful is the accumulation of capital over time. Can you make sales? Are you consistent, right? Are you getting attention? So I'm actually building out like AI executive assistants that just help with consistency when it comes to starting and launching a business. And so, yeah, that's actually really exciting to me. There will always be a market for executive assistants and virtual assistants. But I do believe that a founder first starting out needs someone like as a co-pilot to sort of brain dump, but also perform tasks for them on a routine basis, like following up with leads. Probably the number one, issue with getting sales is actually the follow-up, because it takes about 20 to 30 times of touch points with the customer to actually acquire them. So you got to follow up, and most human beings are terrible at it.
Very right. Yeah, you have something that nudges you on the right follow-up, it can be worth its weight in gold. I know that for sure. What about a good book you've read recently? Anything that you comes to mind?
I have one. Where is it? Is it called? The Almanac of Naval Vikrant?
What is it?
Yeah. So this is, I've probably read over 1,000 business books over the years. But this one is much more about Naval's like sort of thoughts and meditations on business.
I love Naval Ravikant. I actually have not written a book.
Okay, thank you for helping me understand.
I didn't know who you were talking about at first. I follow him on Twitter. I think he has some of the most insightful things to say. What's the name of the book? The Almanac?
The Almanac, yeah.
Oh, I need to pick that up. Okay, so tell us a little bit about Naval. Why does he stand out for you?
The mindset of the founder, or the source of inspiration for a given company or movement or idea, is just as important as the ability to, or the capacity to create the work itself. And so really it forces me, one, to be a bit more self-reflective before I say something to my team, or to commit to doing something for a business or interact. So a lot of it is just sort of like, do I understand my own engine, right? And then can I use my own engine to inspire the team internally, and then inspire others to then go create and affect change and exchange value, or to enact commerce, if that makes sense.
I'm writing it down. I'm going to get that one. He's one of my favorite thought leaders. And I knew he had a book, and I kept forgetting to pick it up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a book review on it. It's going to be amazing. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes. Oh, and the other one is, it's happiness too. Like as a founder, grind. But if you're happy and you're grinding, that is exponentially better than just grinding when you're miserable, because you should grind anyway.
If you're happy when you're grinding, clap your hands. I like that. All right, I'm gonna check that one out too. Okay, all right, good stuff. Last question, and then we'll get a quick lightning round in. What advice would you give 20-year-old Calvin that you didn't know then, but that you know now?
It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And so here, gonna be okay, and you will make your own place. You will make your own reflection of the world that you want over time, right? Being very ambitious. You want everything yesterday and now, but what I'm finding is patience has probably been the number one competitive edge I've ever had. Just going after that same sale that I normally would have, they're not interested, but just hitting them up month over month, week over week, and just being there when they're actually ready to transact. That pays off dividends.
Yeah. So did you stress a lot when you were younger about decisions and agonize over things?
I didn't get this great beard from and I was just kidding. Yeah,
I love that, man.
Most type A's, you tend to run a bit high strung, but
yeah, for sure. You're right. You know what? I like to tell myself that advice day to day, and then some days I'm better at it than others. So I know.
Correct.
So I want to ask you real quickly. You mentioned you were in Phoenix. Lightning round real quick. What part of Phoenix did you live in?
So this
remember?
apartment
I know it
complex with
was a
smoke
while
tree. Yeah. Oh, the Metro Center. Do you remember? Is it? I don't even know if it's still around. It's probably still around. The Metro Center, right around there.
Yeah, in the Phoenix metro area. So what's your favorite part about living out there? What do you miss?
Ooh. Where I lived, or when I went to college, there was a lot of. So first off, I love Mexican culture. Period. Like Southwest Mexican culture is amazing.
Same.
Food is absolutely phenomenal. I've never felt so welcome. Just walking to the place. Hi, how you doing? I've been invited to quinceañeras. These important life moments. You just come to the cookout. Tres Leches is amazing.
I gotta be honest with you. I totally agree. I went to San Diego a couple weeks ago, and I live in Florida now. It's got a very Latin culture. Latin is different than Hispanic Mexican, right? So when I go and visit, like, I mean, I had I went and ate at like 3 different Mexican places. We had incredible like car culture, like you said, quinceañeras and all that. Like Mexican culture is an amazing culture, and you don't get that anywhere else in the country outside of that kind of Southwest, Southern California area. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's a great melting pot, right? You have a lot of folks from California that come through there. So you got this sort of Cali vibe. Plus, you have like the Southern culture. I wanted to chill out because I grew up in Boston. It's very high strung,
Did you go to Arizona State?
No, unfortunately, I went to a small technical art school, the Art Institute of Phoenix. Yeah, it's no longer in business.
Listen, that's so much better than Arizona State. I went to University of Arizona. If you would have said Arizona State, we would have had to end the podcast immediately. So we're good.
Well, U of A. Oh God, I had so many friends that went to U of A. Yes,
yeah, it's a big rivalry for us.
Absolutely.
And I bet you don't miss that 120-degree summer weather, right?
Fair enough. Yeah, you're right.
So you're in the DMV now, though? You live in the DMV?
Yes.
Okay, well, tell us about the DMV. What do you love about it out there?
Ooh, this is probably one of the best civically organized cities I've ever been in my entire life. Yeah, so the metros are really clean. They run on time. What was I going to say? A very walkable city. What I like about DC is, regardless of what regime is in charge, in and of itself is like a group of people that want to extremely knowledgeable. Like I've never felt dumber going into some of these rooms. Fulbright scholars. Like he's credentialed ambassadors. It's just lowly me just walking in having a conversation. So it's a really great. It's a very cosmopolitan city. Very down to earth, I would say. And the amount of events and the folks you can run into just going out and about is absolutely amazing. Yeah.
I've always enjoyed my trips to DC. I think it's the most, honestly, as a kid, like the monuments and I love history. I love American history. I love government. Brings a tear to my eye going and seeing all those different things out there. And it's the most European city we have too, from a perspective of actual work, like architecture and different things like that. I took my daughter there on a trip 5 or 6 years ago when she was still pretty young, and got to take her to all the different monuments and the different museums and the different things like that. It's a great city, underrated food city as well. Lots of good food out there.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, Calvin, I appreciate you coming on, man. We had a great conversation. Thanks for spending time with me. And I look forward to talking again soon.
All right, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.